Hello and welcome to the Face of Pro-Life. Today I'm speaking with Father Angelo from the Franciscanfriars of the Immaculate. Thank you so much for joining us today, Father. It's always great to have you here.
Thank you.
Didn't really plan on what we were going to talk about today, but I know you're always full of great information. One of the things that we've been talking about recently is we see more and more polls claiming that the majority of Americans are pro-life, and yet we still don't really have majority of politicians or even just in general, we don't see the pro-life people out there in front and in droves. What are they doing? Why are they being silent?
I think it's because it's hard work, you know, and standing up for life isn't always a convenient thing to do. I found out a lot of times, like our experience on K Street in Norwich, is that people are upset that you're there. I mean, it wasn't like you had to do a whole lot. It was like they just didn't like the fact that you're making a public demonstration. So if you rock the, I mean, that's the 11th commandment in a lot of contexts and circumstances in the church and in society is don't rock the boat. You know, you can do what you want, we'll do what we want, you can do what you want, it's okay with us, just don't rock the boat. Tolerance has become a religion in itself, really. So we got to be tolerant of everybody's decision. So you don't want to have an abortion, don't have an abortion. She wants to have an abortion, that's her choice. I think we've lost a sense of principle. I mean, that's why we can't define marriage anymore. I mean, it's like the discussion isn't even really about what marriage is, you know? It's not about that. It's about what most people want, or how can we work this out so that everybody's happy, and we'll get around to defining marriage according to what everybody feels comfortable with defining it, and not really asking ourselves, well, why is there marriage in the first place? What does it mean? You know, that's not even relevant anymore, because it's all about tolerance, really. Yeah, and tolerance is a value, but you make it a religion. You make it the one thing that matters. Nothing else really matters anymore.
Well, you're talking about tolerance, but like you say, some people are upset that you're choosing to stand outside of an abortion mill and pray.
Because you're saying somebody's wrong, somebody's right, and someone's wrong, and you're taking a stand, and it's not politically correct. I mean, that particular issue is not politically correct. If you wanted to save the planet or, you know, save a cat or something.
Yeah, that would be okay, because the cats are defenseless, whereas the babies.
And it's not really controversial, you know. I mean, fine, yeah, we all agree, you know, more or less on the. It's just a very sensitive topic. I mean, people will travel to Japan to worry about the dolphins because it really doesn't affect their lives directly. You know, I mean, it's a side issue, but they can make really important for themselves. But it becomes like a pet project, whereas abortion is something that touches everybody's life. Very sensitive issue.
It touches all of humanity.
Yeah, but I mean, everyone's touched. I mean, it's close to home because what, 1 in 3 women now have abortions. And it's in everybody's family, you know, one way or another, someone's been touched by it. And it's very sensitive. And I don't think that's an excuse, it's just a reason. And I guess I would say there's an issue of scandal involved, because scandal can be, you know, scandal generally is a word or an action which leads somebody else to a downfall, to sin. But it also could be the lack of a word or an action as well. So it can be a sin of omission. If you don't say something or you don't do something, that's also a scandal, because it can lead, you know, others into sin. And we've lost the sense of the sacred, I think, and lost the sense of sin. So God help you if you were to suggest that something is good and something bad, something objectively pleasing to God and something objectively sinful.
So
and that's I think part of the problem.
Do you think that events in the past have contributed at all to people being less likely to stand up for life, such as Operation Rescue, and a lot of people who courageously, went out and blocked abortion clinics and everything to save babies' lives, but ended up being arrested and causing big, scandals, really. Do people shy away from that type of controversy?
I mean, I think that was the reason Operation Rescue was shut down, because it was effective, and it was affecting people's lives, and it was gaining a lot of support, and it had a lot of parallels to other forms of civil disobedience, which were considered,
right,
praiseworthy, and it was looking more and more like a civil rights movement, which it is, and so it, ended up getting painted with the brush that, the pro-aborts wanted to paint it with, which was, racketeering, which was ridiculous, but that's the way it was painted, and. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, you stand up and you get knocked down, and you get knocked down a few times, and other people don't want to do it.
Right. And because I know when we tried to organize the 40 Days for Life, I mean, we even had priests who, it was like, oh, I don't want to get, cursed at, or I don't want to get, egged or whatever. And it really isn't a conflict when you stand out in front of Planned Parenthood and pray. I mean, you get way more support than you do negativity. And yet I know our priest got up and said, oh yeah, I got flipped off and everything. Yeah, but he didn't talk about how many people gave us the thumbs up or honked in support. It's like people try to emphasize the negative, and I think we really need to get out there more bravely and weather some of the negativity, but embrace all of the support that we've been given. How do we affect the change to make people more brave?
Well, I mean, in the end, I mean, it is a matter of bravery. It's a matter of doing the right thing. It's a matter of integrity, of telling the truth, when nobody else wants to tell it. So. I mean, it's sort of a balance in terms of what you tell people about the experience. It is a positive experience, but it's also, it's also stepping out of your comfort zone, and that's a part of the reality. But I think it's just motivating people to understand that the importance of the issue and what's at stake. And I think things are changing, but I think there needs to be. I mean, a lot of the younger priests, I think, are very helpful.
Why is it important for people who are pro-life to speak out and to
because
take a stand?
If you don't take a stand and you're silent, then children die.
And
you can't be silent in the face of evil. That's scandalous.
And how do you get people to speak out? In what ways and what venues would you have them voice their opinions and speak out for life?
Contacting your local and your federal representatives of legislators, voting for the right people and supporting the right people publicly, and doing what you can to support crisis pregnancy centers in your local area, especially Catholic ones. And making sure that the local mortuary is manned with people who pray and help the girls. I mean, there's lots of things that people could do, but it is a commitment, and it's something that people have to be unwilling to ignore.
Mm-hmm. Those are all really good ideas. Like you said, make sure that you stay up to speed on all of the bills that are going through locally.
And nowadays too,
nationally.
I was just hearing, I don't know about here in Connecticut, but I was just listening something in Rhode Island. You can go to the state government website and get hooked up so that they'll send you emails. They'll send you alerts when something goes through a committee, when it passes out of a committee. You can even get text alerts, tell you what's happening. You can follow a certain issue at the State House the way you would follow, you know, something on the internet. You know, they'll alert you.
And there are a
So,
lot
I
of
mean,
things going on that you can keep up with. I know Connecticut is
you can watch the debates on the television, on the internet.
right, and they're discussing parental notification. I mean, that's a huge thing. You know, it's one of the only states that doesn't involve parents. So
There's no restrictions here
right.
in Connecticut.
I mean, so a child who's 14 or 15 can go to Planned Parenthood and get an abortion. And that is nuts, considering that that same kid can't go to the school nurse to get an aspirin, well, not an aspirin, but say a Motrin or anything medical.
Right.
So it's really a backwards.
In Rhode Island right now, they're talking about banning teenagers from tanning salons.
Yeah, yeah.
Making it illegal to get a parental consent to go to a tanning salon.
So you have to have parental consent, or you can't go to a tanning salon.
They're going to make it illegal, period,
wow.
in Rhode Island. That's what they're talking about now, making it illegal, period.
See, no, it's okay to interfere in the child's life with the tanning, but making a life-changing decision to kill their child, put them at risk for a breast cancer, change their life forever, that's okay. They don't want to interfere with that at all.
I was just talking to someone about same-sex marriage in Rhode Island, and he was saying his father thought, well, what's the big deal with civil unions? You know, if they're going to get civil unions, and had no idea that it's basically everything but the name. When the whole thing went down in Massachusetts, which is right next door, a couple years back, and then Connecticut just even more recently. You know, it's all been played out a number of times,
right.
And people who are, more or less well informed don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
They really don't know anything about it.
And in Rhode Island,
it's very easy to sit back and not say anything because you don't know anything.
Yeah. But the legislators in Rhode Island, they know. You know, if they vote for civil unions.
No, I understand that. I'm saying though that this is why people are. This is why people. I'm not talking about the legislators so much, but just people in general. They don't know what's going on in their state house because they just don't take the time.
Yeah, and it is important. It truly is, because our government is getting more and more involved in our lives, and not in a good way. You know, they want to be involved to make us sin, but they don't want to keep us involved to keep us healthy. It's crazy. As far as so we talked about keeping up to date with the legislators and making sure we contact them, because not that everybody's involved, and so when they do receive emails or letters or phone calls, it's not like everybody's pounding their doors. So you do have a lot of power when you do voice your
what do
opinion.
they say? Your phone call or your visit to your representative represents how many people? 1,000 people or something like that.
Yeah. So even if you got yourself, your family, a handful of friends, and you could really influence that legislator to our side.
Yeah. If I get back to scandal for a second, there's what theologians would call active scandal and passive scandal. Active scandal is actually giving scandal by saying or doing something, or not saying or doing something that leads somebody else to sin. But it's also a sin to take scandal. So that's passive scandal, where you allow somebody's bad action or lack of a good action or word, whatever, to influence your own behavior in a way that you end up following, or you end up being also complicit in the same thing. That's taking scandal. So, the idea that because someone has scandalized you, that just lets you off the hook, that's a good excuse to, like, people leave the church because of what priests have done.
Right.
Scandals will come. Our Lord said, but woe to them by whom they come. But He doesn't let the rest of us off the hook because they happen. And I guess that's really sort of the problem, is that silence is infectious.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes easy to be silent when everyone else is silent. You don't. And the more people are silent, the more you stand out by speaking up. But it has to be done, and people we need to pray for the grace. The church we need to pray for a lot of grace in these times. And where sin abounds, the saints say that grace abounds all the more. So that means that the grace is there. Even if it's fewer people, there's more grace. There's still more grace there to do what we need to do.
Well, people have to know that the majority of Americans are pro-life, and they claim to be, themselves pro-life. So there's more support out there than they realize. It's just that the pro-aborts have had the soapbox and have, had the mainstream media, and basically they've, bullied the pro-lifers into silence, just like they try to bully the church into silence. And so keeping up with the legislative issues and keeping on your legislators is a good thing. But you also mentioned that there are many other things that people can do to be pro-life. And you said pray outside of abortion mill. And I think that is probably the simplest thing to do. It might not sound like it, but it really is a very rewarding and very simple sacrifice. I know after the 40 Days for Life in Massachusetts, there's a fellow who comes every Tuesday for 2 hours and just prays outside the clinic. And he's been very effective in turning women away from the clinic, and he never says a word. He just stands there and prays. And so I just think, it's a hugely effective ministry. And you mentioned supporting pregnancy centers, which is really important because the majority of the women don't want to have abortions, and they just need somebody to help them choose a different option.
Right. Yeah, and they need support. That's always the dynamic when it comes to abortion, is the lack of support or the pressure that leads the woman to that choice. And I've been to retreats where, for women, post-abortive women, and they don't make excuses. They actually don't blame it. Generally, they don't blame it on other people. But the fact remains that there's always a dynamic there, and a lot of times it involves pressure, and it certainly involves a lack of support.
Right.
And that's what they need. And that's the other part of this whole thing in terms of dealing with the symptom of silence is the issue of charity and evangelism. I think a lot of times people who are pro-life or Catholics or people who are just trying to live their faith and be good Catholics are just trying to take care of themselves and their families, and it takes up a lot of time and energy, and sometimes it consumes their interest. But I mean, the church is evangelical. It has to be. And people need to get out of their comfort zone, and you look at the saints, you look at great men and women who did a lot of things for their church and for their country. They didn't just concern themselves and their family.
Right. Right. I mean, you really can't close yourself in, and you have to, like you say, spread out and evangelize.
There's a huge issue of charity, and I think when it comes to winning the hearts and minds of people, it's one-on-one. It's direct contact with people. It's a harder way. It would be easy to say, well, we can let somebody else do it, or get out there and yell and scream. The harder issue is to deal with people you disagree with and stick with them and try to evangelize. It's tricky. It's difficult because a lot of times you see them as your enemy. You see the people who are pushing pro gay marriage and pushing abortion as our enemy, but they're not the real enemy. The enemy is Satan.
Yeah.
And these people need to hear the word of God and be converted, but we do too. We have our own problems.
Right, because nobody's perfect.
Yeah. And it's only going to happen through our own efforts to do that perseveringly. Like our Lord, our Lord was patient. He'd never compromised on the truth. He never minced words. He always said what needed to be said. you know, but he ultimately he stuck with his people, and he ended up dying on the cross for it. It's the harder road. You know, the harder road is the both and, where you say what you have to say, you say the truth, and then you stick with them whether they listen or not. And it's just the harder, you know, it's not easy.
That reminds me of one of our guests that we had on was Gabby Velazquez, who in one of her college prep classes wrote an essay and wasn't politically correct, you know, and I'm pretty sure it was on the gay marriage issue, and she, you know, caught slack from her teacher about it, you know, and she stuck up for herself and her position, and, you know, she was, I'm sure I don't know if she persuaded the teacher that she was wrong, but, you know, she did set, you know, some thought forward, you know, and she did stand up for her faith. And I think those types of issues that they're hard, it's a difficult thing to put yourself in, but it's ultimately very rewarding, because not only can she affect change on, you know, smaller level, but, you know, it can ripple, you have the ripple effect.
Yeah. There's the integrity issue as well. You know, I think people have the benefit of knowing they did the right thing, and knowing that they're real, you know, that they're not hiding behind anything.
And I think we've had a problem, you know, I oftentimes think that Catholics especially tend to be very, you know, quiet, and they don't want to, you know, force their faith on other people, or you know, like be, you know, too aggressive. And I don't know exactly where that comes from, but it's very bothersome.
Yeah, we have great organizations like the Legion of Mary that's very much organized, and you know, the Legion of Mary are the ones that go into the parishes and do the surveys and go door to door and get people back to the sacraments, and even, you know, make converts by doing a survey in the parish territory.
Wow.
So I mean, there are really good organizations, and the Legion of Mary is still active in, you know, many places.
And that's a great organization to join, and it's pro-life, and they do pray the rosary together, and
they pray, but they're also a organized apostolate,
right?
You know, and they do all kinds of different work.
I know they go and
that's a
visit
good
the
thing
sick.
too, because, you know, there's structure, and there's support, and there's guidance. You know, I think a lot of times people don't know what to do, you know, or they don't know how to deal with, you know, issues that are troublesome, or they don't, you know, they need somebody with experience to help them out, or they benefit from mutual experience. So, you know, being in a group always helps.
That's a really good idea, because there are other things I know that the Legion of Mary does that is very pro-life, that, you know, maybe you're not able to stand outside of Planned Parenthood and pray, or maybe one's too far away from you, or whatever, but they do visit the sick, and they minister.
Yeah, anything you can do for the women, you know, like Birthright, you know, helping out any these women that are in danger of abortion, who are very needy people. You know, they have a lot of times are very, very poor, and again, they're in that situation many times because they lack support of one kind or another.
And there's a lot of even fun things to do, you know, like throwing a baby shower at your church. You know, we just realized that today there's been a massive recall on cribs. You know, throw a baby shower, buy a crib for a crisis pregnancy center, so that they can supply a woman who's having a baby with a crib. Fill it, you know, with all sorts of stuff, because they're always in need of diapers and wipes and all sorts of things, and of course cash to pay for the heating and the lights and the rent, and they really, even though you're not out there ministering to the women, you really are the backbone of the organization by helping them supply the women with the things that they need to choose life, because sometimes it's just a matter of not having a crib, or not having a stroller, or not having, you know, somebody to help them, you know, fix their car, or, you know, pay the rent. There's always something that people will put, you know, it's like I just can't have this baby because. And if you can eliminate the because,
Yeah.
You save a life.
You can always volunteer, you know. There's like at a birth, pregnancy crisis center, they've always got something that needs to be done, even if it's folding clothes.
Yeah, yeah. Or I know on Wednesdays at Problem Pregnancy, they give out clothes, and that's like the most popular day because there's always women there. It's like, and you get to go through all the fun clothes, and it's really a joy-filled experience to see, you know, the women, you know, they're so grateful just for diapers or wipes or whatever they can get, because it's tough in this world to raise kids anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to be careful not to give scandal. You know, it's sort of a conspiracy would be the wrong word, I suppose, but a sort of collective, you know, sort of en masse, we're silent and we facilitate it, you know. We facilitate everyone's silence by mutually sort of confirming people in it. People need to step out, you know.
So if you're pro-life, you need to let everybody know. I mean, it doesn't have to be
pro-life
confrontational.
doesn't mean I don't think abortion's a good idea, but I don't want to bother with anybody else. That's just one notch down from I'm personally opposed, but I think everyone else should have a right to make their own choice on the matter. So sometimes I wonder if there's a few people who think they're pro-life, but also think that means that I'm personally opposed, but I don't think, you know.
Yeah, and I don't really have to do anything about it.
I've heard politicians say, yeah, I am pro-life, but I just don't think that I should be telling anybody else what to do about it.
Yeah, especially the men. Yeah, because they can't have an abortion even if they wanted one. So obviously they're not going to be affected directly by it.
So being pro-life means defending life.
Yeah.
You know? And it's not an option.
Yeah. And like I always say, you know, we need to talk to our kids about being pro-life. You know, I mean, why are we pro-life? And it's so important, not just for the women and babies, but also for the elderly and for the disabled, and just to be overall loving to all of God's children.
And if your pastor or your priest somewhere gives a homily on pro-life, you know, go up and thank him for it.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's a great point. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining us today. Like Father says, please encourage your priest after they give a great pro-life sermon, because sometimes they might get some slack, and we want to keep their courage up. We want you to talk to your family and friends about being pro-life and about the issues. And when you look in the mirror the next time, you realize yours too is the face of pro-life. Please join us next time.